Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel, Hannah Tay. This video is going to be autumn recommendations and Halloween recommendations. I've got some classic horror, I've got cozy mysteries, I've got a great thriller, and then we go over to the Salem witch trials, and I've got 2 books about that. So I'm just going to dive straight in, and a lot of these books I don't feel like I've spoken that much about on the channel, but I love all of them. They are all my top favourite books. So I'm going to get straight into it. First up, I'm going to start with a thriller. This is by Ruth Randell, originally published in 1987, and it's about 2 sisters who they're 2 schoolgirls. They live with their dad and they adore their dad. Their dad then gets a new girlfriend who's going to become his new wife, and she falls off some scaffolding. Now the 2 girls, one of them is a bit of a scaredy cat, the other one is obsessed with macabre and horror, and you have to think, did one of the girls push her? Which one could it have been? Or was it actually an accident? Really great little novella, fantastic. I'm going to reread that this year. Such a great book. We then have a murder mystery, cozy murder mystery. This is The Murder, She Wrote, A Fatal Feast. This was originally published in 2009, and you might know this from the Angela Lansbury TV series, but the books aren't novelizations of the TV episodes. They're their own standalone thing. So this is about Jessica has a love interest called George coming to stay, who in the first book in this series, Gin and Daggers, you meet George. He's a Scotland Yard detective, and obviously the murder happens when she originally meets him, and then it's years have passed. They have been interested in each other romantically, but he lives in Scotland, she lives in America. How is this ever going to work? And he is coming to her house for Thanksgiving, and it is so cozy. So the beginning bit, the first, I would say maybe 100 pages, George hasn't arrived yet. Jessica is just getting ready for George's arrival, and she is writing for the Thanksgiving parade. So they're making everything for the parade. They're getting ready, like Maine is getting ready. Cabot Cove is so cozy with all the decorations, and she's got writer's block and she can't seem to finish her new novel. And then there's this strange man who keeps standing outside her house and looking in, and she's getting a little bit worried about him. And then George arrives, and then obviously they just stumble across a dead body, and then her and George, because obviously George was a detective, decide that they're going to find out who is this man, because no one knows who the dead body belongs to. They have never met the man before, they don't know his real name, and so they have to find out who he is first before they can solve his murder and find out what happened to him. Such a great book, so cozy. I loved everything about Thanksgiving, because I'm English. We don't have anything Thanksgiving. We don't have Thanksgiving decorations. It's not celebrated at all in England, and so I just loved kind of learning more about that American holiday, and it was just such a great cozy read. Obviously, as it's autumn now, my favourite season, I've got some kind of like throat thing going on and I can barely speak, but we're going to carry on. Now for another cozy one, and one of my all-time favourite books. This is Anne of Green Gables. It's about a brother and sister. They live together, neither of them are married, and they run a farm, and they need a child to kind of help them work on the farm. So they decide they're going to adopt a boy, and they end up with a girl named Anne, and they fall absolutely in love with her, and she starts at the local school, and she just becomes like their child, and they absolutely adore her, and everyone in the town takes her in and adores her too. And it's really about her adventures with the other kids in the town, and I loved it. The reason I've put it in this video is it's very cozy, but she also talks about autumn, so that's why I've put it in there. Next up, we have an Agatha Christie. This is Halloween Party, and this is a Poirot mystery, and it's about his friend. I never say her name, Ariana, I want to say, but it's not. Let's call her Miss Oliver. So Miss Oliver, who is in a lot of the Poirot books and is just one of Poirot's friends, she's a mystery writer, and so she's always asking him questions about real life murders so that she can like put it in her books or get some kind of inspiration, and asking him to help her with the plot of her like mystery books. But this is about, she goes to a Halloween party, and there's a young girl there who says, I've seen a murder, and no one's really listening to the girl. The girl ends up dead, and then Miss Oliver phones her friend Pro and says, there's been a murder at this Halloween party. Can you please come and solve it? I don't know what on earth's going on. This girl said something about a murder, and then Pro comes along, and because his friend has called him to help, he decides that, yeah, he is going to help and he is going to solve the murder. Loved it. There's so much sass in it as well because there's a really good looking man in it and Poirot kind of hates him because he's good looking. And I just loved everything about that. I also just love Poirot and like Miss Oliver, how they kind of like have a little back and forth sass together. Loved this. Next up, I have a short story collection. This is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. And one of the short stories in it is called The Bloody Chamber. And it's basically retellings of well-known fairy tales, but with kind of a modern day twist or just a different slant on the story. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not a fan of short story collections. I feel they're kind of hit and miss for me. I might like one short story, but then I don't really like the others within it. Or I might find some of the stories very samey to each other. But with this one, I thought I loved every single one of them. And I also thought that every story was distinctly different. And that's why I loved it so much. Next up, we're going to go into the classic horrors. And then we're going to end in Salem. First up, we're going to start with one published in 1898. And if you read along with my book club, you would have already read this. This is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. And it starts off like all these classic horrors do, where there's a load of people sitting around telling each other ghost stories to entertain each other throughout the night. And then one of them says, I've got a really good ghost story though. And they go into that and they're talking about people they know. So they're saying, I know this real life thing that happened. And this is about a woman who she goes to work as a governess and she's looking after these two children and the house is very creepy. Something is not right. If you have seen Nicole Kidman's The Others, that was inspired by Turn of the Screw. And it's just a fabulous book, very atmospheric. I really enjoyed it. I had to put it in because it's my favourite book of all time and I've spoken about it so much on the channel. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I just love it. So it's about this guy called Dr. Frankenstein and he gets loads of dead people's body parts and puts them together and puts electricity through it to create his own kind of child. And then he creates this thing that he put together all the perfect parts of humans. So hair as black as a raven's feathers, all these things that he thinks are the most beautiful. So he thinks he's going to have created this beautiful human, the ultimate human with all these beautiful body parts, perfect body parts. But of course, the mismatch of it all together, he creates a monster and he immediately abandons the monster and goes on the run. And then the monster spends his whole life trying to track down the doctor to kill him because he has been abandoned by him. And it's told from Victor Frankenstein, that's the doctor, from his point of view. And he's just, going from place to place, trying to escape the monster. He's cursed himself by creating this creature who's not going to stop until he's destroyed him. There is a chapter told from the monster's point of view, and I love that chapter. And it's really about abandonment, about like parental abandonment and parental responsibility, also about the thing that you create maybe destroying you. He wrote this when she was only 18 years old. At 18 years old, she wrote like the greatest classic horror of all time, which is still being remade to this day. This 18-year-old girl just sat down, her first novel, and cranked out Frankenstein. I'm very jealous of that. I feel like everyone is that, like, she just sat down and was like, oh, maybe I'll try writing a novel, and then wrote the greatest novel, in my opinion, of all time. Love it. If you haven't read it, just read it. It is so, so good. And the atmospheric, oh my God, like the hauntingness of it. There's thunder and lightning and he thinks he sees the monster's green eyes glowing in a bush at him. Is the monster stalking him? Has he found him? Don't. I could talk about it all day, so I'm not going to go on, but read it. I then have another classic. This is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm not actually going to ruin this for you if you haven't read it. So if you haven't read it, it is about a doctor and he is called Dr. Jekyll. I always get them mixed the wrong way round. And Dr. Jekyll is obsessed with a young man called Mr. Hyde. And Mr. Hyde is this violent, murderous man. And Dr. Jekyll is kind of obsessed at finding out what motivates him. Why is he like this? Read it for yourself. Don't watch spoiler reviews or anything like that of it. Read it yourself and discover it yourself and discover what happened yourself, and you will love it if you read it that way. That's the problem, isn't it, with like well-known stories that have like a really good thing that happens within it, is that you've probably seen so many different adaptations of it over the years that you already know the thing that makes the book so good. And so you're like, oh, I already know what's coming up. But imagine when it was first published, people had never heard of it before, and they picked up the book for the first time and had no one to tell them, oh, this is this thing within the book. It's a bit like if you see the film Secret Window, which I think Secret Window is inspired by this book, by the way. Secret Window with Johnny Depp is a fantastic film. If you haven't seen any reviews and no spoilers of it, if you just sit down and watch the film, it is a fantastic film. You should 100% watch it. But if someone's already told you like big parts of the film, then it's ruined for you, because you're going to be looking out for that the whole time you're watching it. And sometimes I feel that's what's happened with like classic literature, like Pride and Prejudice. Everyone knows what's happened in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I know, and I haven't read it, but I've seen so many adaptations, and things like Bridget Jones' Diary is inspired by Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And so I already know kind of the basic plot of what's going to happen. But imagine if you were like back then when it was first published. I'm just rocking my baby. I'm not just swaying madly by myself. I'm rocking my little cherub who's asleep. But imagine if you were the first person to read that, one of the first people, and no one's spoken to you about it again. It's just like this kind of unknown author, and you're picking up the book. How good that would have been to know the stories just as they happened, instead of, it's almost like secondhand knowledge, and almost something you just like inherently know, because that trope of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice has been used in so many modern things, not just adaptations of the original writing, but like I said, stuff like Bridget Jones' Diary, stuff like that you just know the thing within it, and you're like, oh, this is kind of a cliche trope, but it's not if you read the original text, because she's the one that came up with that whole thing that went on to be like a cliche trope. Do you know what I mean? I feel the same with Jekyll and Hyde, is that you might read it and be like, oh, that's kind of a bit cliche. I've seen so many things that kind of have that trope within it, like I'm saying, Secret Window. But if you like, they did it first. I wish that I'd been back then and been one of the first people to read it and not known what the ending of it was going to be. Do you know what I mean? So if you don't know what the ending of it's going to be, you're going to have a wild ride with it. We then have Dracula, which again, if you've read along with my book club, we already read this. I've liked to have this to death. I really liked it. It's basically about an estate agent who goes to, which I didn't know when I originally read it, goes to this man's house. This man is called Dracula, and he's trying to help Dracula buy a home in London. And then he realises something's not quite right with this guy. And we all know Dracula. It's really fantastic, really atmospheric, beautifully written. I can't believe it took me so long to read it. Like, it's absolutely stunning. Cannot recommend enough. We now are going to journey over to the Salem witch trials. So I have two books on that. One is a play by Arthur Miller. This is The Crucible. It's absolutely fantastic. I personally love reading plays. So if that's your thing, 100% read this. And it's just his kind of take on the Salem witch trials. So all the girls kind of shouting at each other, you're a witch, no, you're a witch, no, you're a witch. Salem witch trials started with a load of teenage girls in a small religious community, and the teenage girls saying, her over there who I work for is a witch. And then another one saying, well, my employer is also a witch. And them all shouting at each other, then it getting completely out of hand and ending up with murders. That's the Salem witch trials. Absolutely amazing play, and the play really catches the chaos of the time. Everyone's just screaming at each other and no one knows really what's going on, but they're screaming, you're a witch, because I don't want to be called a witch, so I'm going to throw all the kind of anxiety that everyone feels at someone else, because I don't want suspicion to fall on me. I then have another book on the Salem witch trials. It's The Devil in Massachusetts by Marian L. Starkey, and this is non-fiction, but it reads like a novel the way she's laid it out. It doesn't read like a textbook. It's such an interesting read, and her opinion is that the girls, all the teenage girls, basically had no place in Salem. So a woman's worth was she had to get married and have as many children as she could, and then the man would provide and build the house and go out and get the food, and the men kind of had this community together where they knew their place, and the women had the community together where they knew the place, and then the children would be looked after by the women. But there was too many teenage girls at this time and there wasn't enough teenage boys, and that's how it just had naturally played out. And because they were such an insular community, instead of saying let's get some local boys from the local village to marry our girls, they just said some of these girls are going to be spinsters, and that was like the worst thing you could be at the time. And if you were a teenage girl at the time, your job was to like get married, have kids. If you couldn't do that, you had to look after other people's children and basically be like a living maid. And so Marion's theory was that these girls were angry and bitter. They're saying the woman who I'm looking after her kids, she's a witch. And that in Marion's opinion, it all started off as a vendetta of the teenage girls to try and get some kind of justice because they were so badly treated, but they didn't realize how it was going to run out of control. And that's it. That's all the books that I have to recommend. Over the years, I have done other ones of these videos and I've put in different books. There's one of me dressed up as a cat, which is very bizarre. So I'll put that down below, and I'll put down any book reviews. I think I've got a whole playlist. If you go on my channel, it's got like Halloween playlist, and it's got loads of different Halloween themed videos and loads of book reviews of horrors. So I'm going to end this here, and I will see you again soon for another video.